On the life of Cyril Calvin Louis Belgrave, CCH. Cyril was our comrade, a leader of this party, a stalwart, and an unrelenting supporter and fighter and leader for the People's Progressive Party. He never flinched over the many years as a leader and a member of this party. Tonight we must celebrate Belgrave, our comrade, and also reflect on the times in which he was with us. Belgrave's life started on October 30th, 1936, and he would have celebrated this year his 83rd birthday in a matter of weeks. However, that was not to be. But when one looks at Belgrave's life, especially from when he started as a member of the People's Progressive Party in 1955, he joined the Pioneer Youth League, which was the precursor for the Progressive Youth Organization, and later on, as a member of the People's Progressive Party, was elected repeatedly to the Central Committee of the party and the executive of the party. He was a member of Parliament for over 20 years, from 1976 to 2001. He was a councillor in the Georgetown Town Council from 1970 to 1976. And of course, Belgrave was a trade unionist and a highly respected trade unionist of our country, particularly of a union that the People's National Congress considered their union. Belgrave rose in the ranks to become the head of that union in 1984 in difficult times. I hope for the younger members of the party and friends who are here and supporters and people who knew Belgrave at a personal level, who were not members of the party, that we will recognize the kind of experience and times what Belgrave went through and his family. Belgrave has produced many children and many grandchildren, and they all have been wonderful, staying close to the party and working with us in many, many areas of our work. For many of us, we have jokes, experiences of Belgrave. When I came back to Guyana in 1977, I met Belgrave as this wonderful human being who said to me, "You have to learn to eat Guyanese food." And of course, Belgrave, every Easter, brought my family, my girls, and myself cross buns. And he used to make them himself. And so I'm sure many of you have stories like that, where as comrades, we're not only out there battling, but we also have the human side of how we've lived with each other, how we've worked with each other, how we've kept our bond as friends and as comrades alive all these years. Belgrave's membership in the party has gone over 60 years, and so it is a long life to be able to speak about. It was a great honor for me to know this comrade, who all the years, and even when he got too ill to be able to stay in Guyana and needed to be overseas for medical attention, that every now and again through WhatsApp or through all sorts of contacts, we'd be able to know what was going on. And he always wanted to know what was going on. He wanted to know what was going on in Guyana. And after the no confidence motion, he wanted to know when would the elections be held. And that, of course, he believed that the People's Progressive Party, Civic, would win those elections. So tonight, we recognize, we remember, we celebrate a life of a comrade who was very multifaceted, a person who was a wonderful human being, who showed his love and affection not only for his party members, but for people that he worked with, and always showed great respect for people and showed a level of integrity in the way in which he dealt with people around him. Disciplined, yes. Sometimes passionate. Many times very outspoken on his views, even at the Central Committee level of the party, but always disciplined and always recognizing that his right to speak was also his right to follow the decisions that were made by the party majority. And so it is a very special night for us to recognize a comrade who walked amongst us, and for those of us who knew him very personally. There are some older comrades here who were in his, what I call, batchmates. I was a younger batchmate, in case you think I was part of Belgrave's batchmate. I was in the next batchmate. So that, just in case you think. Because by the way, the PPP is now probably in its 5th generation. And so you have to recognize that we keep multiplying and we keep bringing in the next layer and the next layer. And so Belgrave was probably in the first layer, or first batchmates. And then we have, and so comrades like Comrade Nocta who is with us, Comrade Philomena Sahoy, Comrade Shirley Edwards, who were here with us in those days, the first fighters who came on board. Philomena, as you know, was the head of the Guyana Agricultural and Workers Union. And then you had also, as I said, Belgrave, who was the head in 1984 of the GLU. And so we have also these comrades who were his batchmates. My batchmates are the next group. And so Rohi, Donald, Navin, these are Indra, these are my batchmates. Just in case, let's go on record. And of course, the younger generation who are here. It's important for us to know what came before and the perspective and memories of these comrades, so that we can pass on the traditions and the beliefs and the practices of the PPP as a party representing all people of Guyana, all races, genders, religions, geographic origin, class origin, that this is what the PPP stands for. And so tonight, I wish to thank you for coming out, and we will have the program in this way, that I will ask the first speaker. We're waiting for Comrade Belgrave's daughter to come, and so she will also be speaking. But the first speaker I will ask to speak is Comrade Fanali, then Shalon Belgrave, who is his daughter, and then you have Comrade Barajak Deo. Then we'll open the floor, and we have a range of comrades who are ready and eager to speak as well. You will have to tolerate me as the chairman signaling you sometimes to not go too long, and that includes Barajak Deo, by the way, so that we will want to make sure that many comrades who've come here want to speak. There are also some comrades who I've asked to speak, or asked if they're interested to speak, who say that it's...
Leaders of the civic, stalwarts of the People's Progressive Party, I feel privileged to be able to address this gathering this evening on an outstanding soul, an outstanding stalwart, and someone who has made a significant mark on Guyana and on the lives of many Guyanese. And I think we should all put our hands together for Comrade Cyril Belgrave. Comrades, about 4 weeks ago, I had the pleasure, I would say, of speaking to Comrade Belgrave, and I thanked his daughter and son, who made sure that happened because he wanted to speak to me. And he wanted to speak to me although he was battling his own challenges on matters of the party and things he thought were necessary for us to address to ensure that we win resoundingly the next elections in 2020. And I think, to his memory, we're all going to ensure we work hard to fulfill that dream and to ensure that we do not disappoint him. One good thing about the People's Progressive Party is that it allows its younger membership the opportunity to work with and stand along stalwarts and great human beings who were part of the originality of the party. And I think I'm one such comrade who benefited from being young, but still had the opportunity to stand along people like Comrade Belgrave, Comrade Philomena, Comrade Shirley, Comrade Nocta, Comrade Neil, and so many other comrades. These are only the comrades who are here. And not only stand alongside these comrades in a small way, but as a leader of the party also. And I want to take this time, I think that we don't take enough time, to thank them for the tremendous leadership, guidance, and motivation they have passed on to myself and the many other younger comrades like myself who are all sitting here. And I think we should put our hands together for them for what they have done. Indeed, all these comrades have left a massive footprint that we have to follow. They have left a massive track record that we have to upkeep. I see Comrade Rodney here too. And we owe it to them, we owe it to their memories, we owe it to those who are alive to ensure we do our utmost best to walk in those footprints. As I said, I had the distinct honor of serving along Comrade Belgrave on many occasions. When the Depressed Community Needs Committee was established by then President Jagdeo and Leader of the Opposition Desmond Hoyt, I was named as a resource person to that committee. And Comrade Belgrave was self-appointed by the party to guide me through that process as the resource person. And Comrade Philomena Sahai Shuri, who is sitting here, was the co-chair of that committee. And it was from those days that the parties gave us this exposure and experience and surrounded us with a level of talent in these stalwarts and older comrades to ensure we were successful in what we do. Then I had the honor as a technical person from the Ministry of Finance to sit with Comrade Belgrave and share many hours in Parliament with him. For a matter of fact, he and Comrade Philomena Sahai were the first two persons who ensured I was invited to the MP's launch at that time and sit on the table and had a meal with them. And that was a great honor for me at that time. And these are things that helped to shape not only myself, but many of the younger comrades here today. Then I had the honor of serving with Comrade Belgrave in the Central Committee of the party. And as Comrade Gale said, I can still recall his passionate address and positions that he took. And when he believed in something, it was very difficult. Comrade Belgrave and Comrade Ali Baksh were two persons when they believe in something and they're carrying an argument, they give it their all. And these are things that help to shape us as younger comrades. But there is something about Comrade Belgrave that everyone should know. In my estimation and in the work that I did, he was one of the leading comrades in this party in dealing with depressed communities and the vulnerable. He played a significant part in the Food for the Poor at that time. And he was the single inspirational figure and motivator in establishing the Little Red Village in Essequibo. And I don't know how many of us know about that village, but he was the driver of that project, the Little Red Village. And then he played a significant part in the development of the mainstay housing project through the support from the government of Guyana, Food for the Poor, and some other organizations. He then came to the Ministry of Housing with a plan And that plan was to harness rainwater through the Black Tank Initiative. And he went to then President Jagdeo and ensured that he secured 500 black tanks for the ministry. The minister at that time could not convince cabinet that he needed 500 black tanks, but Comrade Belgrave convinced cabinet and the president that we needed 500 black tanks. And those tanks went to poor Amerindian families to help them to get proper water. This is a legend of the man. He was not only concentrated in Georgetown. Many persons know about his struggle here. But in his work among the vulnerable and the poor, his reach was far and wide. Many places in Essequibo, squatting communities, he was the reason water was carried to those communities because of his work on the ground and his commitment to the vulnerable section of our society and our country. Importantly though, on a personal note, Comrade Belgrave would speak to me about my grandmother. And he would speak to me because when my grandmother was alive, she would mention a few names. Comrade Philomena, Comrade Shirley, Comrade Belgrave, and Mrs. Ben. Those she referred to as our squaddies. And she, at that time, played a very important role in the leadership. And when I speak to Comrade Philomena, she would do the same. Comrade Shirley would do the same. And Comrade Belgrave ensured I knew where I came from. He ensured I knew the struggles of where I came from. And I think for the struggles of Comrade Belgrave, for his commitment to this country, for his commitment to improving the lives of all Guyanese, all cross-section of Guyanese, we owe it to him to keep his memory alive and to reflect positively and work towards a better Guyana every single day of our life. Thank you very much, and let's put our hands together for Comrade Belgrave.
Thank you very much. It's a problem when it's 6 feet and 5 feet.
I think I'm going to be overwhelmed here. Anyhow, good evening, everyone. This is an overwhelming time for me to be here. Those who have known my father in his activities. Yeah. First of all, thank you, Auntie Gail, I would say. I must acknowledge Mr. Nocta, Honorable Dr. Jagdeo, all members here, and Mr. Neil Kamar, Comrade Irfan Ali. I remember the names. It's indeed a moment, I'm not sure how to explain it. Those who've known my father know him for his discipline, first and foremost. He brought us up in a way to be very respectful. As you would hear me say Auntie Gail, we had to say Auntie Gail or uncle or cousin. We could not call anyone by full name. He said based on his training of his Barbadian parents, which we have, part of ours. Cyril Lewis Belgrave, what can I say about him so much? He has touched the lives of so many young and old. On behalf of my mom, my siblings, my children, he would be greatly missed. My children are fortunate to be in his care from birth because I lived with him right through. So he has instilled that discipline to them, that love as a grandfather. He's been there through every stage of their lives, from playgroup, as my eldest is here, he's 28 now. straight through to secondary, I think Freedom House should know this Arsenio. He used to be the one with Daddy everywhere he goes. Oh my God, there's so much I can say, so much I want to say, but I don't know how to say, to put it in words. He's been there with us right through it all. His political life did take a toll in that we hardly used to see him sometimes, but we were indeed overjoyed to be with him, supporting him in it. His meetings, we used to attend. Functions, we have to attend. Not that he was a person, I think knowing him, you guys would know, he would not force you. You had choices. But he respected of whatever background you came from, he respected it. Whatever political party you came from, he respected it. But in all, he helped everyone to live in love and unity. For instance, I would take it back to our area in Guyhawk Park. When we moved into that area, it was clay brick. I think Mr. Duncan should know about that area. I'm seeing him there. It was the clay brick, the red road you call it then, right? And then President Jack Dio, there was the opening of the well in Tocqueville. I don't know if you remember that incident. My son was 3 months old then. And he convinced him, like Comrade Ali said, Honorable Ali, he convinced him that the area needs proper road. They did a grading several times. 1, 2 times, he said, that's not good enough. My car is going to damage. But after that opening of that well, within 3 months, I don't know how he managed to persuade him. No, if I'm correct, the second week, we saw work started. And within 2 to 3 months, that road right through coming from Tocqueville area turning point, straight down to Guyhawk, straight through Guyhawk was done. That was one of his projects. The second project he did was in the community, because he formed a community group. He did the linking of Festival City and Guyhawk Park. Mr. Duncan, you should be aware of it. You're in that area. Yeah, the linking of Festival City and Guyhawk Park, merging the two neighborhoods. That now it's one of the main areas that is used for transportation coming from Festival City to be able to go through there. So there are projects and there are things that he did for not only for home but community. He believed in development. He would, for instance, there were children that would come to the home knocking at the gate and asking for a meal. He would never turn them out. And he has taught us that. Sometimes you're even scared. He said, no, they wouldn't do you anything. Take a meal and give them something to eat. Ensure their children, do not suffer the children. So, apart from his political life, which we all aware of, I guess I'm going to hear numerous tributes about it. There was the humanitarian side of him, being involved in NGOs, etc., and these projects that, would help us. He has left a legacy that can take us through. Not only we as the children, but grandchildren, and even members, young and old. He has left a legacy for us. Despite it's hard, in some ways you feel so, how can I express it? You feel pleased, you're overwhelmed by the well wishes, the support that we have gotten, not well wishes, the support we have gotten. It's not easy because I spoke to Dad the night before, not knowing that would have been the last. And he was asking for his, my son, asking him when he's coming up to see him. He would call every day to check on them because they're here, every day. I said, B, we used to call him B eventually after a while. I said, B, how are you feeling? He said, don't worry with me. I'm checking on my grandchildren. I'm going to be okay. I'm checking on my grandchildren. So it was a shock when we got that message. Despite we knew he had his condition, we wanted to preserve him more. Death was the last thing we were thinking about. It was indeed. But he's in a place where it's not easy to say where he's in no more pain. His memories will live on. His love for us, the love that he left and the legacy that he left behind. For him, it wasn't about the amount of riches, but the discipline that he instilled in us, the values that he instilled in us. And we are able to instill that in our children. And I am thankful. I stand here a proud daughter to say I am thankful for what he has done for us and in Guyana on the whole. I am pleased for his work that he has done over the period of time. Thank you very much. Thank you all for coming.
Thank you very much, Shalom.
Grateful we are tonight to have the members of the family of Cyril Belgrave here with us, along with the leaders of the party, our comrades who struggled side by side with Cyril Belgrave, and many of our well-wishers and those who have known Cyril Belgrave in this special event, to pay tribute to a leader of our party. We really appreciate your presence here at Freedom House. We know we wanted to organize this activity because on the day of the funeral, many people may not have an opportunity to speak. And I know that many of you are overwhelmed with things that you want to say about Cyril Belgrave. Many of you have struggled with him together, stood side by side with him in building this party, or those of you who have experienced in some form or another his kindness and his advice, and that you will not have the opportunity on the day of the funeral to speak. So tonight we're hoping that all of you will be able to do so, to pay a tribute to this very special person. Now, Gail Teixeira said that she would limit the speeches, and she said, I'm included. But she did not know that I cheated. At the press conference today, I knew I was going to be limited here, so I used the opportunity to speak extensively about Cyril Belgrave, about his contribution to our party, and how special he is to us. And so tonight, I just want to repeat a few of the sentiments that I expressed and place it in the historical context where a young Cyril Belgrave joined the People's Progressive Party through its youth movement. That was the era of turmoil, the fight for freedom in our country, freedom for all of its people. We were still under the yoke of colonialism, and people in our country who looked like us did not have the dignity to be treated as equal citizens to the colonizers. They were privileged in every area of public life. People's color at that time determined their access to jobs and opportunities. And there were tons of people who were born here from every race and who lived in every area and who worked in every single area, from farming to craftsmen to those who worked in the bauxite industry and mining, who were longing for freedom, the right to work under fair circumstances, and for dignity for their people. And it is in that context that Cheddi Jagan and a few others established the People's Progressive Party. And from almost its very beginning, from the early 50s, Cyril Belgrave was there, a young man. And the goals of our party were clear, then as they are today. And sometimes people try to mischaracterize us. They try to define us through their experience or narrow political spectrum. But our party was established to fight for freedom for Guyana, for all of its people, regardless of race, religion, gender, or any of those differences that seem to divide us. And the working class nature of the People's Progressive Party was established in that period because Cheddi Jagan and many of the other leaders, and including Cyril Belgrave, they saw the need to continue to uplift people, particularly working people in this country. And often organizations take on the characters of their leaders. And so it is the People's Progressive Party is what it is today because of the character, the principles, and the strength of purpose of those early leaders. An organization that stands today as a beacon for freedom, for dignity, for all Guyanese, regardless of what people say about us, for all Guyanese, for working people, to ensure that they progress. It was imbued with the philosophy of the early leaders, and it remains until today the defining principles and characteristics of our party. And so throughout their lifetime, you can trace Cheddi Jagan's struggle in favor of the dispossessed and for freedom. And Cyril Belgrave stood side by side with him in those struggles for freedom in Guyana. And he has been, or was, in fact, he faced the brutality of the regime that snatched our freedom away from us for 30 years, or 3 decades nearly. He faced the brunt of that regime in physical ways, leaving out the emotional ways that he faced. And throughout, but that never, because of the strength of his character, that never, for one moment, not for one moment, caused him to weaken in his struggle or to leave the party. In those dark days in opposition, many people who seemed stronger left the struggle. They left the struggle, they left the party, but Cyril Belgrave continued through it all. And we're proud to have him as one of our leaders who represented us at every level, city council, at the parliament. And we're so proud that he was one, almost for 30 years, the leaders of our party, because he got elected to the executive of our party for all those years, a leader. And another thing that caused Cyril Belgrave in and out of government that he never lost was this pro-worker position. Throughout it all, he's always, every time you talk to him, he's looking to improve the lot of workers or ordinary people. So that was a very important thing for us. The PPP would not have been what it is today, an organization that fights for Guyana, an organization that doesn't see people color or anything of that sort. Had we had a different set of leaders at the beginning, had we had leaders who did not have the the principle and the strength of Chetty Jagan and Janet Jagan and Cyril Belgrave and Philomena Sahai. You see her until now here, struggling in those early days when she couldn't even move. She was still in the last government forming CDCs around the country trying to help poor people. And even up to now, they're concerned about the struggle. 2 weeks ago, I spoke with Cyril, and all he could say from the bed was, "Hello, Barack," because he was so weak, and he always called. And so this would have been a different party. The second thing I want to talk about is Cyril Belgrave. Cyril Belgrave is an Afro-Guyanese in the People's Progressive Party from the 50s to now. And simply because of the stereotypes against Afro-Guyanese who joined the PPP, his lot and the struggle was even more difficult for him and many of our Afro-Guyanese comrades who've struggled over the years, because there had to be a greater inner strength to withstand the rumors and the assault and the abuse sometimes, simply because they believed in a cause or believed in the People's Progressive Party. And today it's because of him and many others like him, many of you here, that we are now aggressively, we're not going to allow this to continue. We're going to aggressively take down all of those rumors about us. People will see the true nature of the People's Progressive Party, because we have worked hard in favor of all of Guyana, but the mistake we made is that we did not tackle frontally the stereotypes. We allow the rumors and the whisper campaigns to define in Afro-Guyanese communities of who we are. And we are now working hard on the ground everywhere to dispel those rumors. And we made it clear that this party, because of those rumors, it kept so many people away from us, that a natural home for many Afro-Guyanese is in the People's Progressive Party because of our policies, because of our principles, our love for Guyana and for everyone. And so we are going to work hard to change this party. The party will look like Guyana in the future, and we will do so through our policies and through aggressively tackling anybody who tries to perpetrate a stereotype about us, that we are an Indian party or we are this kind of party, etc. We have to ensure that we do that. And we owe it to people like Cyril Belgrave, who withstood all of the abuse, whose job, it was easier for Indo-Guyanese to be in the People's Progressive Party than Afro-Guyanese over the years, those early comrades, because of the vile things that were, rumors that were spread about them. And we owe it to him to continue the fight so that this party really can deliver all that it is and can shine in its full glory, and people will understand what we stood for. So there have been many opportunities to talk about Cyril Belgrave. I remember a tragedy for me. I remember just at the house at the back there, Zangar, where I shouldn't say that name. When we had the old house there, and I was Minister of Finance, some nights we lined there, and Cyril will tell some stories, including stories about Rohi too and stuff like that. Sorry, I don't want me to repeat them. And I said to him, this is the history of the party, because from the 50s, you know, the struggles and what they did, and how one time they were illegal and police were hunting them simply because they belonged to an organization that wanted to change Guyana for the positive. And I said to him, record all of this, Cyril. This is our history, because your history is part of the PPP's history as a leader of the party. We've lost some of those things. Every time I tell Cyril, he'll say, yeah, working on it, man. I'm not sure he did it if the family no, started and stopped. And Philomena and the others need to do that now. Don't we have to get our leaders, because this party has had a glorious history of struggle through its leaders, that every generation that follows us must know about how it was in the beginning. How is it that we forged this organization called the People's Progressive Party, and the struggles that we had in doing it, and so that they can be educated about our history. Because then if we don't, the others are going to rewrite our history for us. And so I'm hoping that we can do this in the future. There are lots of other things. Cyril likes to talk too. One time I went to Canal Polder. I was the last speaker. 3 o'clock the meeting started. People came with their children. We had a public meeting there. Everybody sitting, they brought their bags, spread their bags on the roadside. Guess who the speakers were? Cyril Belgrave, Philomena Sahai, Moti Lal, Komal Chan, and Fazal Ali. Every one of those think that you're running a marathon. And when they hit the platform, so we started at 3. At 7 a.m., only the third speaker is on. A baby started crying, people rubbing their belly, they're hungry and stuff like that. And we're only up to the third speaker. By the time we got to the end, Fazal started crying about Asghar, how Asghar treated him badly and stuff. And then I had to speak at the end. Half of the crowd probably disappeared. So Cyril and the others, there's so many things that everybody here knows about these comrades. But one thing about these leaders, without their support and encouragement, we couldn't have been where we are today as a new generation of leaders. They've always had good words of support. For me personally, I benefited from enormous acts of kindness from Cyril Belgrave and many others like him in this party. And so we'd forever remember these things. As I said before, guilty sure watching me. So thank you once again for being here to pay tribute to this leader of ours. As I said before, the PPP is poorer today without him, but we are grateful that the family could have shared him with us, because he has helped to define this movement and made it the way it is to serve people. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Comrade Barrett.
I really didn't want to say anything, but because it's very emotional for me. I don't know if you know, but I have a son that is also Belgrave's son. So I thought, so you could imagine how it is to me. Anyhow, I'll tell you a few things that happened in 1963. We had an 8-day strike, and Belgrave worked on the ferry with me. He carried a boat, he was the chief mate, he carried a boat to Trinidad. I walked on the Boris ferry. Anyhow, when we came back, the government at that time was PPP, and we brought in food to the people coming, everybody was on strike, and that wasn't coming in. And there was a Cuban boat. I worked on the Cuban boat. Belgrave also worked on the Cuban boat. I thought many people don't know that. Yeah. So that was it. I knew from 1963 until now. Sometimes lately, these few months gone back, he'll wake me up midnight, call me from America, to ask me how Guyana is going, how the party is going. Sometimes I wake up I'm nervous because I have my chin and grandchin over there, I think something happened to them. I called Shell and I said, Shell, and tell if I don't come to the house. That was the man who was really interested in the party. So I told Donald to what he was doing, and Bobby gave me a set of literature to take over to him. When I cried pants, he said, Marshall, if I bring these things, I gotta read it to you, see too good. She gotta read it to him. I remember him in his car with fetching goods, the people in different areas, kind from food for the poor. He did a lot of humanitarian work. And eventually, he used to follow me home at night because people keep vigilant in the road, we can't pass him. So I can't get home. Many nights I have to come back and sleep at Freedom House because I can't get home. Those were terrible days. Nobody would like to go through those days. We had a hard time. I remember Michael Ford's funeral. He was the chairman for the PYO of large group. And we come down, he came and picked us up to go to the funeral. And we just smart in our uniform. It was a green skirt, a white shirt, party armband, call it the party, a red beret. And from the time we left Lee's funeral, politics passed here at Freedom. It looks like peace, it was beating me all the way. At one time I said, look, I never just I left in this party. But they said, no, don't left it. You will let me call it then, other people. It was very distressing. Come out to burn my mother's house. Sometimes I wake up in the morning, I see a set of white squad in the yard. They come to search the guns. I said, Janet gave me guns to bring in that child. It was very trying. But all in all, he encouraged me to continue to stay in the party because I wanted to leave. I was never ready after that time. But he said, no, you stay on, and I'm glad I did. I haven't regretted one day of being in people's party. So, I could tell many things with Belgrave, but I really wouldn't bother with that. But my son is 55 years old, and he's the father of. So you can imagine how long ago I knew him. Sharon and Clemsford, and they all recognize Jomo. And they want everything come. Anyhow, we have lost a good comrade. And I have lost somebody calling me 3 o'clock in the morning. Thank you.
We will win. We have to win for the sake of our nation, for the sake of our country, for the sake of our people, for the sake of the PPP. We're the only ones that can put this country back on its feet. And this is in memory of the Belgraves and all those who came before, who stood for our independence and freedom and democracy. And we, the many generations below, have to commit ourselves, as they did, to bring a change on March the 2nd, 2020, so that we're able to reconstruct our country and restore constitutional rule, which this government has been undermining over the last 4 years. So, let me not carry it away, because then I might have the General Secretary signaling to me to stop. So this is the problem with politicians and PPP leaders. This is the problem with the PPP leaders. Sometimes we don't know when to shut up, but it's... but
Gail, family of the People's Progressive Party, it is indeed a sad occasion, but Cyril's life is one to celebrate. And I think we have made a very good start this evening in our moments of reflection about his life. I want to say that I, as an individual coming out of a riverine area, coming to Georgetown, was very much privileged to spend some time with Comrade Belgrave right here at Freedom House. came here in 1989. He used to be a fixture almost every evening downstairs with another good comrade named Mitchell. Everybody know him as Coffee. Mitchell is another Gaff man like Comrade Cyril. Most of the stories we thought were true. Some of them we found out later on were not really true. But it makes for a good gathering downstairs, and there was also Comrade Collymore, who sometimes I would say is the total opposite of Comrade Belgrave. Comrade Belgrave being jovial, Comrade Collymore walking up always serious and all of that. And that is why we used to hotwire his motorcycle and go riding when he parked it downstairs in his MZ to go to meetings. The screwdriver used to work very good on the headlamp of the MZ motorcycle. I hope Comrade Collymore is not here. But Comrade Belgrave always had words of encouragement for the comrades. I remember one story with some Limpy, a guy named Limpy from the PNC. I've heard that story 1,000 times about how Limpy chasing the comrades them from a public meeting and how Cyril came to the rescue. And he was also a comrade who takes care of the party, the comrades of the party, the assets of the party. I remember one night dropping in home and I wanted to hurry come back. And I took the turn, I think it was PBB 4506, a ladder station wagon. And I took the turn right here very sharply, and Belgrave said, hold up. You cannot take the turns so fast because this will put a stress on the wheels, the front wheels, the steering components of the ladder. And I said, Comrade Cyril, they make these cars very, very, very strong. And friends, all comrades, ladies and gentlemen, I think my life is much better for having known someone like Comrade Cyril Belgrave, a member of the People's Progressive Party, and I agree with the Comrade General Secretary and Comrade Irfan when they also attest to the struggles that these comrades would have gone through, and they still stayed true to the party. Their commitment, their dedication, and it was unwavering, and we really will be blessed to have comrades who can emulate who these comrades are. I want to thank you very much for affording me this opportunity to spare these few words today. Thank you.
Let me first of all say that I cannot speak with any authority as a member of the PPP. But I can speak with authority as a trade unionist, since Belgrave's was a member of my union for over 30 years. Strange enough but true, when I got into the trade union movement in 1963, Belgrave's was working on the waterfront. And he was the vice chairman for the waterfront branch. And strange enough, a man by the name of Samuel Cornelius Walker was the chairman. But Belgrave always took a dynamic stand on all of the issues, even though Walker was the chairman. And on more than one occasion, Belgrave was nominated to be chairman, and he declined. He said, as a matter of principle, I have faith in Walker, and let Walker remain the chairman. When I leave Guyana Timbers, and I came to the GLU as a trainee, I wanted to get on the central executive of the union. At that time, the waterfront was the largest branch. So I went to Cyril, and I said to Cyril, look, I want to get involved in this thing. I want to be assistant general secretary. I want to be on the central executive. Cyril said, I will support you, providing that you continue to have an international flavor in everything you do. So I got Cyril's support, and I won the elections. When I became General Secretary, took over from a man named Stanton Critchlow, and we had our first Congress. Cyril was there. And even though we had our conflicts, Cyril got up after the presentation of the General Secretary report, and he congratulated me for having done a good job. And he said, even though the General Secretary is young and inexperienced, he has a far way to go. And I admire Cyril for that. And I admire Cyril for that. And because of that, even though I was General Secretary and Cyril was the Vice Chairman for the Waterfront branch, after a time the branch decreased a lot. But I can always rely on Cyril's support at the Central Executive Committee meeting. He will tell you at the meeting, I'm going to support you, but I don't agree with you. So he supported me, and when the meeting finished, he said, you should have done this thing this way and that way and that way. But he supported me. And sometimes when he come to the office and we sit down and reminisce, he hinted it once, Gail, that I should come into the PPP. He hinted it once. But at that time, I did not understand the complete philosophy of the PPP, and I was tied into an organization which I had to rid myself of. But now I understand. So when I heard Cyril died, tears literally came from my eyes. Because when Cyril was the chairman of the recognition board, everything Cyril did was for trade unions. He supported the trade union in every call. I can recall even when we were organizing the city council workers, Cyril spoke to some of his comrades and said, come with the GLU, even though he had a conflict with Burnham. But he was worker-oriented. He was worker to the heart. And he understood that the power of the workers can very well mean something to him if he needs their support. No guillotine shirt. I can finish 2 minutes. But it is sad to know that good people, friendly people, ambitious persons, patriotic persons have to leave. But even though Cyril is gone, he left us a legacy. And the legacy he left with us is that we must love one another, help one another, regardless of the circumstances, because we must all be our brother's keeper. Thank you.
Compliments are in order for the party to have organized this event to salute the memory of Comrade Belgrave. Let me start off with some lighter issues before I go to the more serious ones. Worked for a number of years at the Mirror newspaper as a linotype operator during the day. And at night, I would come to Freedom House to line, only to find two individuals that were always here debating issues, political issues and waterfront issues. And whenever you talk about Cyril Belgrave, there's another person you need to talk about, and that's another, a couple by the name of Gladwin Levius. Both were waterfront workers. Tall, good-looking black men. Worked in the waterfront for a number of years. And I remember one night I was here, they came and what they used to do is they used to recruit people for job work at the waterfront. There was a place that used to be called the Colin Center, where stevedots would be hired on an hour-by-hour basis to do work on the waterfront. In those days, there were no container shipping. Everything was done by stevedots unloading the ships and cranes. And so one night they took me to do some work because, of course, the money that I earned at the Mirror was not enough. And I went there, and while I was there, I saw some pilfering taking place. stevedots always do pilfering. I saw some pilfering taking place, and not understanding the culture of working on the waterfront, stevedore jobs. I went and reported it to somebody I saw who I thought was an authority to stop the pilfering. Who told me to do that? That's the worst thing I could have done. Because Cyril and Gladwin called me later on to say, look, you're going back there again. Don't do that whenever you go to work on the wharf. You keep things to yourself. Well, you know, it takes you time to learn certain lessons. And that was one lesson I will never forget. And then there's another lighter issue with Cyril and Mr. Gladwin Levius, which was when the two of them got together downstairs there in front of Freedom House to talk their bedtime stories. A young man like me couldn't really get involved because, I mean, the story would be, you know, they have movies for what is called mature audiences. Well, they have conversations also for mature audiences. And so young boys could not be heard or be seen listening to those stories from mature audiences. We had to know our place. When Mr. Levius and Mr. Belgrave got together to talk their stories together. I made a couple of notes here, which I will try to deal with within the time allocated by Dr. Sheila. One is the question of value. How do we value a comrade? It's very difficult to value comrades because there's so many yardsticks by which you can value them. I think in valuing Comrade Belgrave, like we would value most comrades, you have to first of all look at him as a black comrade. Because black comrades in the PPP are unique in their own sense, precisely because of the political culture in our country and party politics. He was one of the best black comrades in this party that we ever had. That I can attest to. Replacing Belgrave, not going to be easy. It should happen. We should be able to do it because at this time, we need more Belgraves in the PPP and in Guyana. For two reasons. One, because he's politically stable, politically anchored, and because he's a trade unionist. And nowadays, when you have people like Lincoln Lewis writing a whole set of bullshit, excuse my language, because that's the best way I can express it. In the newspapers and the press, every weekend. You need a trade unionist of equal caliber of the Belgraves to answer people like Lincoln Lewis. I don't believe he writes those things. Got somebody writing it for him, a ghostwriter. But be that as it may, I still feel that we need that kind of person to be able to answer. So he stood out in that respect. So we need more like Comrade Belgrave in the PPP. And when I say more like him, I mean an individual, a comrade who could combine the politics with the trade union issue. Sometimes when the politicians get into talking the politics, they fail to make the distinction between what is political and its political issue, what's a labor issue. And when you're dealing with workers, especially in a trade union, when a trade union has people from different political backgrounds, because you don't recruit people into a union because they're PPP or PNC or any other organization. You recruit them because of they belonging to a particular workplace or job. And so, dealing with trade unionism and politics sometimes could be a very delicate and complicated issue when you're dealing with your membership in the union. But Belgrave had the talent and the ability to skillfully deal with trade union issues vis-a-vis the political issues as well. Belgrave was not a wealthy man. Was not a wealthy man, I know that. But his wealth was in his commitment and dedication to the cause. And there's no greater wealth than that. There's no greater strength that you can bring to the PPP than that wealth that you have in your position, mentally and physically. Physically in the sense that you're working with the party day in and night out. And mentally, you're bringing your knowledge, your experience to the PPP for all to benefit from it. And that was a skill and a talent that Mr. Belgrave had. The black factor in the PPP, Jack, you mentioned that. I made a note of what I have to say on that. And you know, I've seen many of our black comrades being so humiliated in this party, not in the party, belonging to the PPP, being humiliated by the PNC. Black PNC humiliated black comrades in the PPP. Could you imagine that? But you know what it was? It was a question of class. It wasn't race, it was more class. Because even up to now, it's happening. When I look at the treatment that is being meted out within recent times on Facebook to Mark Phillips, it's really disgusting. It's really disgusting, those of you who follow these things. I follow it because I like to see what people are talking about and what people are thinking about. But it's really disgusting to see these things. So black comers in the PPP stand out in this sense. And I'm happy to see so many of them here. But it's important for them to learn from the example and to follow the examples, understand the examples of people like Belgrave, who stood up, notwithstanding the pressures. Burnham was at one time headhunting. He took about 7 MPs from the PPP, black MPs from the PPP. They were weak, of course, and they were looking for opportunities, and so they bent. But Belgrave didn't, because they tried with Cyril, but Cyril never walked across the floor like some of them did. So, quickly, principles. That was because he stood for principle. Principle and dedication to the PPP. And that is what all of us need to do. Assessing his contribution to the PPP, And the struggle, the measure of the man, that's a matter for history. We can talk as much as we can today, which is good, to talk well about our comrades. The measure of the man is something history will absorb. And to conclude, the question is, would it have mattered if Belgrave was in the PPP? Would it have mattered? This is the question we must answer and try to engage in some retrospection. And if he was not here, would it have made a difference? My answer to those questions was yes, or would be yes on both counts. And this activity here today is a good manifestation and expression of our love, our admiration, and our exaltation of how we feel about Comrade Cyril Belgrave. He would be missed, and he will be honored by many of us, so long as we are alive, to speak about his contribution and to say, yes, he did make a contribution. And had it not been for him, perhaps the PPP would probably have been a little weaker, because as you know, as they say, the strongest link in every chain is what makes the chain as a whole strong. Thank you very much.
I think the General Secretary made it clear that he's against stereotypes. I think I might be one of those who have been stereotyped. But personally, it would be remiss of me not to say something about Comrade Belgrave. I never viewed Comrade Belgrave as anybody very special in the party. He was one of us. He was a comrade, an outstanding comrade. For me, who was a young PYO at the time, Comrade Belgrave would always make the appeal. Comrade, can the old PYO speak to the young PYOs? And I think this is something we robbed him of. The experience he had that the General Secretary spoke of kind of was lost in a way, because he had tremendous things to tell us, but we never had the opportunity to hear from him. I was a protege of Comrade David Chandapal, Comrade Feroz Mohammed, and I was very happy to hear our former General Secretary, Comrade Rohi, speak. I had the opportunity to travel with him to Moscow in 1976. But what I want to say is, for me, Comrade Belgrave was very special. He was a role model for us in the PYO. We never saw him as somebody different. In fact, Comrade Belgrave was noted for the way he spoke. He had a voice that was thunderous. I don't know if you know that, but I think the chair might know that. He spoke with a very deep working class voice, I would call it. And as Comrades pointed out, he was above all working class oriented. I would want to think of Comrade Belgrave as someone who I would have known why it is that he stuck to the end with the party. And I think Comrade Clement expressed that view. He was not just working class, so he was class oriented. He knew, and I'll tell you just my reminiscences of Comrade Belgrave. I saw him at the 2015 conference in Diamond. He hugged the president then, I think, who was in suspension, I think, because of prorogued parliament, and there were tears in his eyes. And I saw him and I said, this comrade is troubled. I knew he was sick and he was going to go abroad. And there were tears in his eyes. He hugged Comrade Donald and he said to him, we got to win these elections. Well, we lost at that time. We lost to that coalition that usurped the government. What I'm saying to you, and as people like Comrade Belgrave, I'm going to challenge the party that the time has come for us to stop talking about as Comrade pointed out, just the achievements and the contributions. He has earned his way into what we should call a Hall of Fame. It is time this party put into place a Hall of Fame for those comrades who have made their mark. Comrade Fazal Ali, Comrade Navin Chandapal, Comrade Belgrave, Comrade E.M.G. Wilson, Comrade, they talk about coffee, Louis Mitchell. Our young comrades like me, we would have known many of these comrades, we didn't know all. Ari Aesop and Linden and so on. These were comrades who we need to know, and we need to have those comrades put in a hall of fame so the young comrades who come into the party now would be able to know who people like Comrade Belgrave is, because his legacy lives on. As far as I could say, he was a protege of Dr. Jagan, because I could think that born in 1936, at 20 years from then, he would have been a young man, and he would have been influenced by the formation of the People's Progressive Party on January 1st, 1950. He would have been part of that fight in 1955 when the party split, and he was taking a position against the leader of the founder leader of the PNC, who was labeled by the Americans as a demagogue, I think a racist and an opportunist. And that is what he knew as a class politician, that this party belonged to him and we belong to that family. And I just want to stop here because I'm going to ask the party to make a special, and Commander Fan is here, to make a special recognition that there's a Hall of Fame. If any organization will succeed and sustain itself, it has to let the young comrades know that these are the people who built it, who sustained it, and who will carry the message into the future. Dr. Jagan started it, and Comrade Belgrave is one of those who built along with him, Comrade Janet and all the others. I want to thank you and say that I'm very happy to be given this privilege and opportunity to say something about my... Incidentally, Calvin Belgrave, who's not here, was a student of mine at North Georgetown in the 1980s when I started teaching there. And I think Dr. Jagdev mentioned Zangaro. Yes, we used to live there too. I worked when I came back. When I came back from 1978, I held hands with Comrade Gale when they were beating us at the march. We were left looking on, nobody else around, and we wended our way back to Freedom House. I never forgot those days. What I'm saying to you, this is the history. I'm glad to come. Shirley spoke about it. The ships and the boat. Tonight I gave Comrade Philomena a letter she wrote. She never remembered that letter. She wrote while she was in England, because Comrade Philomena is not just a party comrade. She was the General Secretary of the Guyana Industrial Agricultural Workers Union, and she led the fight for the recognition of the GAU, the strongest, most militant and united union in Guyana. Right, Comrade Calvin? And that, we must remember, that is her class orientation. She is there, like Comrade Belgrave, as a stalwart in this party. I'm just saying these things because younger comrades need to know. Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Comrade.
So my voice a little back. Right. Yeah. Madam Chairperson and leaders of the party, comrades. I knew Comrade Belgrave as part of the Georgetown Central Group. I was a member there, he was a member there. And we have spoken about Comrade Belgrave, but we have never spoken about the person who always sat next to him, Mrs. Belgrave. And she kept him in order. I don't know how other individuals dealt with him, but in party group, she dealt with him and she kept him in order. What I am here to speak about is how I came to know Comrade Belgrave. As a person who dealt with legal history, UWI had a meeting seeking to determine after the Grenadian Revolution what should be preserved if you had a revolution or a coup. And between the Oilfield Workers Union and the Barbados Labor Union, we had a discussion at UWI about what historical gains the workers had made in the Caribbean that would be preserved. And I say this because as lawyers, what we were faced with our Constitution is the law in England was determined as what was in your Constitution. But fortunately for the Caribbean, since 1939 or 38, we had achieved certain things as workers in the Caribbean, which had not been achieved in England. And at the time we became independent, collective bargaining was not a matter that could be allowed in England. It was achieved here in the Seamen and Waterfront Workers Union because the British Guiana Shipping Association had gone to court when they wanted to deduct monies and so forth, and the union was struggling with them. But the issue arose there that they were allowed to respect, the association respected the right of workers to collective bargaining. Now, collective bargaining came later in the ILO conventions. It was not in our constitution. That is the right to form trade unions and the right to be in collective bargaining. And I also want to let you know that there was a time when, in reflection on that same meeting about what had occurred historically in Guyana, the PPP, you know, in '63 had tabled the Labor Relations Act, which meant that workers were going to get recognized. You didn't have to have voting, it was going to become statutory, compulsory. That, you remember, was the basis on which the PPP was removed from office. It was not until 2000 or 2009 that we had our Trade Union Recognition Act, and that allowed for voluntary, for compulsory recognition. So the struggle that was started on the waterfront by Belgrave and by Walker and those individuals, it took that long to materialize. But it materialized in a way which showed that the workers had gained more than the workers in England. The Guyanese workers were ahead of the workers in England. So when Thatcher was able to crush the mine workers, it would not have been possible for them to do it in Guyana. And I also would want to say to you, I came to know Belgrave later when we were discussing matters that perhaps, like Comrade says, you don't talk about. The relationship between the Seamen Waterfront Workers Union in Guyana and the remainder of the Caribbean was crucial in terms of fraternities. And Cyril had connections in Trinidad that meant that if you were fighting the Burnham regime, you had connections in Trinidad which could have facilitated. I wouldn't want to go into the details. But in closing, I would like to touch on what Comrade Barrett had said, that we should be writing our history, the verbal oral history that comes from our members. But it's important to recognize that if you're going to write the history, the modern history of the working class, you're going to have to write the history of the PPP. There is in our archives documents that don't exist anywhere else. The letters that went between Comrade Janet and Weber as Commissioner of Police when he was going to prohibit and ban your meetings and that sort. Those things don't exist in the archives, and they certainly wouldn't exist in the Guyana archives, National Archives with this time. They are in our archives. It's part of our history. And Cyril and those individuals who came forward didn't come forward just because they had talent. They came forward because this party allows for the development of a proletarian intellectual. Nowhere else, other than in the PPP, do you have a path that allows a proletarian intellectual to develop and to sustain himself or herself. So it goes to Comrade Philomena, it goes to Comrade Shirley, who have been in, there are other people who did it, but it is arising because the party has that particular path. And I say that if we are going to go forward and respect what Comrade Belgrave has achieved, we must also respect the fact that we must produce more proletarian intellectuals. People who don't have to write about Western poetry. They do it like Comrade Charlie says. I didn't come to talk because I keep half and left half. That is as much poetry, and it comes because the PPP allows our working class intellectuals to develop and to sustain themselves. Thank you, and I hope this honors Comrade Belgrave in a different kind of a way.
For proverbial guillotine, I'll try to be as brief as possible.
I haven't used my guillotine so far.
So we of the Gawe indeed appreciative to have this opportunity to join with the PPP and all the comrades to pay tribute and to recognize the value and valuable contribution of Comrade Cyril Belgrave to our nation and more so its working people. Over the last few days and during this evening, he's been hailed as an outstanding Guyanese who has indeed made a profound contribution to society. He was a public figure for many years, and in that time he wore many hats, including that of a trade unionist. Of course, as being said tonight, he would have begun his working life on the waterfront. History records that he Okay, better now? Yeah, okay. So, from our research, we found that he joined the waterfront in 1953, and he remained there until he retired. Of course, we have seen that during that time, he moved through in several posts, moving from a labor and then later to an operator. Of course, as we know, well know, it is during this time that he began his association with the trade union movement, and he became an active member of the GLU in 1955. As Carvel would have said before and others, he rose through the ranks, first becoming a shop steward and later the vice chairman of the waterfront branch. Of course, his involvement in the movement was fueled by the exploitative practices of the employer class, and he was still in his defense of the ordinary man and woman. His trade union connection brought him to the realization that genuine and profound change in the interest of the working class could only be achieved at the political level. This, of course, led him to becoming involved in the political arena. Through this aspect of his activism, he became a member of parliament, and he advocated in the August House on behalf of the working people. Though as his time went by, his trade union involvement waned, his commitment to the working class persevered and even strengthened. He never lost touch with the sentiments of the ordinary people. And Comrade Belgrave has the distinction of being the first chairman of the Trade Union Recognition and Certification Board in our country. Of course, in this time, there were many achievements for the workers and the unions in Guyana, and it's indeed a starting contribution, or one of its starting contributions to the movement and to the Guyanese working people. At this time, we of the GAU join to extend sincerest condolences to his children, grandchildren, other relatives, and friends. While we know this is indeed a sad period for the family, we urge them to take heart and solace in the fact that he lived a fulfilling life, and his work and activities helped in making the life of many Guyanese better and Guyana a better place. Thank you.
Chair. Of course, I would not be able to speak about the man Belgrave. What I would attempt to do is to speak about the spirit of Belgrave. Because I believe fundamentally for people of African descent who are members of the PPP and who have embraced the PPP, I believe that we are standing on the likes of Belgrave's shoulders. Because I give you, more so for the young people of African descent in this audience, I give you a story and you would understand the contrast of Belgrave in the PPP in the 60s and young Joe Hamilton coming to secondary school in Georgetown. And when you were coming along Robb Street, because of what was inculcated in you, instinctively, you went across the other side of the road to walk by Metropole. Passing Freedom House for young black people was a difficult task. So today, the fact that we can be in this building, we are standing on Belgrave's shoulder because you had to move from where you had a difficulty passing in front of this building. And I'm sharing a personal experience that today you can embrace this party. And so for comrades who now are embracing the PPP, sometimes I know how difficult it is. Comrades of African descent, I know the frustrations. I know the difficulties with families and friends. I know the difficulty with co-workers. I would say to you, find the Belgrave spirit, because I suspect that that is what sustained him and people like Comrade Shirley Edwards and so. And think about it. Many of us who think now it is burdensome to walk with the PPP, think about Belgrave living in Guyok in the 60s and the 70s and 80s. You just cast your mind. So I would just say to you, when you think you have burdens to fetch, embracing the PPP, your burden is Sunday school to the burdens of those comrades of African descent who journeyed with the People's Progressive Party. And that's why I'm saying, I didn't have an intimate relationship with Comrade Belgrave. The closest I know is that we spent about 5 days together at a Commonwealth conference in Trinidad. And what I know, I can say he's a pleasant man. Very pleasant. But I urge our comrades, specifically I'm speaking to, comrades of African descent in this audience, find the Belgrave spirit, continue to work, continue to struggle, continue to give your all to the People's Progressive Party sitting.
Knowing Big Cyril was a joy. He used to be one of his good friends in the tannery yard in the bay, and he used to encourage us, "Man, come on the waterfront and do something." When we left school in the afternoon, we used to go down to the waterfront, and Big Cyril used to give us work on the, we call the big iron at the time, the ships. And Big Cyril used to always encourage us, say, "All right, you're a time we had planned stowing away." Said, no stowing away. Stay with me. I'm a member of the PPP, and I want you all to be with the PPP. So, like that, I'm encouraging you all. I will give you that. I will help you. And he is one of the persons in my life that I recognize did a good job for me. And I was at TI, same thing. I go down to the wharf, walk on the waterfront, and get money. Big Cyril and Straco, others, Derek, these boys, these big men, we used to call them big, and they used to give us employment. Thank you.
Comrade Gale. It's always difficult to compete after dinner, but I'll try. I'd like to recognize the immediate family of Comrade Cyril Belgrave. I'd also like to recognize the leadership and membership of the People's Progressive Party, friends, close friends, acquaintances, colleagues of Comrade Belgrave. We are happy indeed to have you here as we eulogize and we participate in this night of reflection, speaking about the life and works of Comrade Cyril Belgrave. While Comrade Gale mentioned that I would be speaking on behalf of the young people of the party, I would like to just add that I'm speaking here tonight in the capacity of the chairman of the Central Georgetown PPP group, of which Comrade Cyril Belgrave was a member up until the time of his demise. Notwithstanding Comrade Belgrave was not physically there at group meetings, he would always ensure that his subscriptions are up to date at the beginning of every year. So we would have continued to maintain his membership within the party group, along with Eileen's membership as well. So both of them continue to be, or rather Eileen continues to be a member of the Central Georgetown PPP group. I'm not as fortunate I'm not as old yet to speak about the glorious days and about the struggle and what Comrade Belgrave went through and all of the turmoils, the issues that he would have faced as a young black person growing up in the PPP and in British Guyana at the time. I can tell you from when I would have joined the party group in, maybe it was 99 or 2000, I met Comrade Belgrave there. He was one of the leading members of the group, in addition to Comrade Collymore, who was also the chairman at the time. We had Comrade Shirley, who is also a member of the group, Comrade Hubert, Comrade Rohi at the back. He is a member of the Central Georgetown group. So when Comrade Gale spoke about the different generations of members or people within the party, I immediately started to calculate how many of those people are still with us and how many of those people belong to the Central Georgetown group. I rather believe, because of how the dynamics were of the time, the most convenient group to join was that of the Georgetown group. And these people would have maintained their membership throughout the years in excess of 30, 40, 50 years. We still have some of those members in our group here today. I was pleasantly surprised earlier this evening to see another stalwart of our party, Comrade Feroz Mohammed. He graced us earlier with his presence. And those of you who know Comrade Feroz, he don't usually or regularly come out to events or activities. It must be something of importance. It must be something that is dear to him. It must be something that means a lot to him. So to see Comrade Feroz here, it means that Comrade Belgrave indeed would have touched him somewhere or the other. They shared a relationship, they shared experiences, and that is the reason why we saw him here. Joining the party and being a part of Freedom House in the earlier days, I remember working along with Comrade Belgrave. I have particularly and fond memories of him when he was attached to Food for the Poor. There are many times people would come to Freedom House, particularly those that live along the highway and interior locations, and they would ask for assistance or help. Of course, we weren't always in a position to help those people. Comrade Belgrave was always a person who could pick up the phone and say, look, I have somebody here, they're in need of some clothing, they're in need of some food stuff, what can you do? Every single time I would have called Comrade Cyril, if he did not help immediately, 2 or 3 weeks later, something came to Freedom House with a name for that person. So that was something I remembered about Comrade Belgrave. He never denied anybody, he never turned anybody down. He was always very helpful, particularly when it comes to humanitarian issues and helping people personally and socially. So I remember him from that. I remember also he did a lot of work with the farmers on the highway, particularly this in Cuthbert's area. I myself was in that area a few times, taking in supplies that Comrade Belgrave would have given to the farmers in those areas. So he was an all-rounder. He was very helpful to anyone who came, regardless of your political affiliation, regardless of your ethnic persuasion. Comrade Belgrave was always there to help you, and he was always there to give a helping hand. Coming into the party group around 2000, I met Comrade Belgrave there. And for those of you who may not know, our party group met downstairs on the 2nd floor. That is where the group meeting were held. And at the reception area, when you come up, there's a reception area right to the right-hand side. That was Comrade Belgrave's spot. Whenever there's a group meeting, nobody dares sit at that spot or in that reception area. He would stand there until they move from that particular area. So he always sits at that area. There is a session that we usually call educational within the party group, where we dedicate half hour or so to discuss issues. Comrade Belgrave was always the first and last person to dominate that particular issue. Between him and Collymore, there was always a tussle, there was always a fight as to who should speak more, who was right, who was wrong. So I remember, and I benefited from those discussions to the extent and to the extreme whereby I became the chairman of the group after Comrade Collymore would have left. So I remember Comrade Belgrave from the group meeting. He was always disciplined, as some of the comrades mentioned earlier. He was always there along with Eileen. They were always on time for a 6 o'clock meeting. There was always, I think it was the Brown Mark II that was always parked in front of Freedom House. So whenever you come and you see that Brown Mark II, you know that Belgrave is in the building. You know Eileen is somewhere around. So I remember them for being disciplined party members. Comrade Belgrave has made an indelible mark not only to the Central Georgetown PPP group, but to all the people that he have touched, all the people that worked along with him. We will definitely and surely miss him. he is somebody we should always strive to emulate, especially young people coming up in our party today. No amount of sympathy or no amount of condolences that we give today can probably mend the hurt that I know the family is feeling today. But I know after leaving here today, all of this outpour that you're hearing and all of the things that you heard about your father, your grandfather, it gives you some amount of comfort that Cyril indeed would have touched the lives of not only you, but many of the people, if not all of the people here in this room. And that is something good you can take away, and that is something you can always remember your father about. So on behalf of the Central Georgetown People's Progressive Party Group, we'd like to give our sincere condolences at this time, this most difficult time of your bereavement. And we are here, and we would continue to have you, Comrade Belgrave and Eileen, in our prayers. Thank you.
And everyone, good night, comrades. It's a pleasure being here. And it's a pleasure listening to the news about our comrade. Gave us strength. We are the African in this party, we need to be strong. And the APNU have a problem, comrade, when they see African, because every African represent ancestors. And they know what they are doing, so when they see African over here, they tell themselves, nah, bye. Something wrong. But the African in this party, I encourage you all to be like Mr. Comrade Belgrave. Be strong, don't give up. This is a different fight. This is a bullyism fight. And we can't back down, we would not back down. We don't care what we say, we don't even care what they say. This is my party, comrade, and I love it. Position, no position, I'm comfortable. And I would continue fighting, campaigning alone, walking and liberate them, and telling people what they are doing is wrong. And I don't even care if one is doing it, because I know 2020, this party will be on top. Thank you.
It remiss of me not to say something of Comrade Belgrave at this occasion, representing the Women's Progressive Organization. Because Comrade Belgrave, at many occasions, or on his own, and sometimes mentioned by the leaders of the WPO, he is an honorary member of the WPO. He's honorary by his actions. There is never an activity, including the congresses of the WPO, that Belgrave is not present. On International Women's Day, he would come around Freedom House the day before or long before, asking what activities we were having for International Women's Day. And sometimes, like Comrade Harry, he would come here and share the flowers, and his wife and family would come to the activity of International Women's Day. And not because we're honoring women, because he saw women as an integral part of this struggle and of the PPP. One of the things I know he talked about was a right for equal pay and equal work. And we can kill ourselves all the time, and the new thing is that about domestic violence and about wife abuse. Yes, he would say that is true and good, and it should not be. We should campaign on those fronts. But the women issue was much bigger. The right to a job. The right, if a woman don't have work, then how can she be independent? How can she have her own money? How can she stand up for others? And so women's rights took a very high agenda in Belgrave's whole outlook and way of life. I remember I had the opportunity to sit on the Trade Union Recognition Board when he was a chairman. And I was not nominated, and he told me a way in which I could sit. Why are you absent from the meetings? And so I was there, and one of the issues we had debated was we had the right, women had the right for 3 months leave, maternity leave. But if a woman loses a baby, she has no right. And she would have gone through the same pains and the same struggles but there was no right. But how can we put it in the laws? So while he was chairman, he was examining all the time, how can we better the laws for workers? Because you could struggle at your workplace through the collective bargaining, but if you make it law, then everyone, it will become part of the policy of government. So politics and economics being the bread and issue that you fight every day. But he saw without politics, you can't win much, and it had to be integrated. And so Belgrave was that. Women issues was very, very women. When I worked at DDL, he was telling me what are the issues. I was a welfare worker. What are the issues you would look for? Because GAU was a trade union, was the representative of the workers. So when you visit the site, you're able to, right away, women were standing up with the bottles as they passed. And what law, what issue can you come up with for women not standing, but sitting, the noise? You can only experience this thing when you work in the factories. And Belgrave was there to give you advice. I must tell you that Belgrave also was not only for women's rights, for whatever. One of the things I remember when I started to work at Freedom House was, as Gail mentioned, he was a culture. Culture was important for him to bring out, and it was not culture, but revolutionary culture. So the songs, the revolutionary songs, and the norms and values of a revolutionary was there in whatever he had to bring out. The worker stage, I was part of that when Gail was heading it, and Comrade Belgrave would want to give you advice, but also want to take part. One of the things I remember was All Year's Night Dance. So Freedom House had to get All Year's Night Dance, and he was there organizing it. The bar, the tickets. When we got in power after time, the parties moved away to Pegasus and so forth. But Belgrave would be downstairs there with the tickets and counting who come to Freedom House dance. So Freedom House dance was very important because comrades are not only meeting and renewing ourselves and bonding, but it was also to raise money, and Freedom House was special. Freedom House for him, being here, I felt Belgrave was one of my protectors. When I have an issue, he was not, as Sharma said, he was not like up there and, you feel kind of separated. You could go and talk to him. His voice, Comrade Rowe, he wrote an article about the black comrades in the party. He forgot to a comrade who would talk all the time as loud as Belgrave was Coffee. Mitchell would be out there if there's an issue. Mitchell would say how Fidel or how Camilo or Che Guevara would have handled this. And he would talk about his time. And Belgrave would say, I don't know if Belgrave studied in Moscow or what, but he would talk with Lenin, how Lenin would have answered it, or how Chetty Jagan would have understand that issue. So you would hear Belgrave's voice from the time he comes up for his whatever letters he have to come in. So then he talked to every comrade as he go along, raising some issues. So Belgrave and my husband, late Fazal Ali, became very good friends. So Fazal would search for people in the afternoon or the weekends that he would go and visit farmers, but he wanted to take someone to impress them. And Belgrave was one person, and they were very close friends, and so you're matching, you're bringing an experience there of the tongue, of the workers, the way they fight for their betterment, to the farmers who it's very difficult to organize. And he's bringing that struggle, that way, that when you take a farmer issue, whether it's their rice or their paddy or their right, how they can struggle and how they could win battles. So I thought that was very, very good. So Belgrave was no tongue man alone. He was mixing with the farmers on the countryside, and that's what made him all-rounded. So it would be very wrong, it would not be satisfying for me if I don't mention these few things of our comrade. Comrade Belgrave, I know that he has another thing is you can't attend the meeting. I was in the Georgetown PPP group. You have to start the meeting with a PPP song, and you have to end the meeting with international. And if you don't know it or you stammer, that was sacrilegious, because you have to know those two songs. And the party is not, the meeting didn't finish till you sing that song, the international. And he saw to it in the Central Committee sometime, and the international has to come up. So some of the norms and values that I've learned from my senior comrade. I've happened to know Philomena Sawyer. So one of
this night of reflection on the life of a fallen hero, a fighter, and a comrade is most appropriate. And when I look at the children and relatives of Comrade Belgrave, I said to myself that the party has fulfilled a commitment. Age, old memory, and emotions are constraining me tonight to say so much that I would want to talk about my association with a comrade. Up to the time when he died, both of us were living 63 years in this People's Progressive Party. Starting way back in the PYO, and I recall one PYO Congress held at Vridla School on Better Hope, East Coast. At that time, the anti-communist fever and the way the United Force and the guys, you had YSM, and you had PYO. And at that Congress, with so many 100 PYO comrades attending, including by Belgrave and myself, Peter de Geer and the United Force sent a group of young guys, a few Portuguese boys, to picket our Congress. That did not go down well, and Comrade Brindley Ben said, no, this nonsense got to stop. Move them out. And Comrade Belgrave and some of us, brave enough, we ran out of the building and chased them off. Eventually, Comrade Belgrave, such a strong young comrade, about 5 of these United Force youth end up in the trench at Better Hope. And that is one of the memory I have with a young, brave and strong comrade Cyril Belgrave in the PYO. We grew up together. There are so many things which I would like, but as I said, memory and emotions. I recall another occasion when we picketed the Rice Marketing Board. About 30 of us, young comrades, picketing, and the police came. It was under Burnham time, I think. They came with a vehicle, they used to call it the Black Maria. A small vehicle, but it was about 30 of us, and comrade, they squeezed us into that vehicle and took us to the police station
right near to the parliament. And when we came out, they took us to the officer, the corporal or either sergeant, and he said, well, you bring all them people to safer. We ain't got place to put them. Let them go. And Cyril again said, they had no damn right to bring us here. However, charges came to 30 of us. And when we appeared before in the court, Comrade Ashton Chase was our lawyer representing us. Case called up. We all standing inside the court, but the place was so small. And the magistrate, having read the charge, Ashton Chase said, no, not guilty. Argument between Ashton and the lawyer and the magistrate. Eventually, when the argument finished, the magistrate said, okay, take your seat. But they couldn't take us, they didn't have enough seat. It couldn't accommodate us to sit. So Belgrave and myself and some others, we decided to sit on the floor. And then the magistrate said, no, not in my court, nobody to sit on the floor. And then Belgrave lead us. And we all walked straight out to the court. Eventually, Comrade Ashton, our lawyer, he said, look, don't worry, the case dismissed. Brave Comrade Belgrave was leading us in that picketing. Comrade Belgrave was a no-nonsense man. He was brave and always willing to lead in the battle. And I can recall one day in the parliament, at that time we had blackout. Electricity was nothing good. Blackout all over. And every time we were in the opposition, when we criticized the PNC and Burnham about darkness, they will say, oh, hydro. We're going to get hydro. UMRP, UMDP, Upper Mazzaroni Hydro. Until one day in Parliament, I think it was Corbyn, he was responsible for electricity, speaking. And when Comrade Cyril started to criticize them about the darkness of the city and Georgetown and Guyana, Corbyn stood up and said, oh, we're going to have hydro. And Bill Griff said, loud, very loud, you're going to get hydro seed. C.S. Narayan, who was the speaker, he himself had to laugh. But comrades, there are so many things I recall about Cyril Belgrave. 63 years we struggled together in this party. And in these 63 years, I try to remember Comrade Belgrave like other leaders. Not many are around now. And I recall about a few days ago, I asked his son on the telephone about his father, because I always remember. And he said he's still getting the treatment, and I asked him to extend my wishes for good health. And I even told him about our association. And talking to him, I said, our association is so rich and strong that money cannot buy the sentiments that attach to myself and Belgrave. And surprisingly, about 2 hours after that telephone conversation, he called me back to say, Cyril, his dad has passed away. It was terribly shocking for me. And as I stand before you, I want to say that the struggle in this party for 63 long years, starting in the PYU, has brought me quite a lot of education in the party and commitment to continue the struggle. I want to offer my heart and peace to the memory and to the children of the late Comrade Cyril Belgrave, our hero. We are with you, comrades. Our thoughts are with you. Thank you.
Very much, Comrade Gale, my comrades and friends, an old comrade, Harry Nocta, senior members of the party, and regular members. I want to join with all of you in taking note of the life of Comrade Cyril Belgrave, and I want to endorse what Joe Hamilton was saying earlier, that particularly for Afro-Guyanese who joined the PPP and stayed with the PPP through those years, it was quite a challenge. And we must have great respect for Comrade Cyril Belgrave for staying the course from the mid-1950s. I did not work much with him, closely with him. We were in Parliament together for maybe 3 terms. But one thing that stood in my mind was one day when Aubrey Norton was in Parliament too, they were ragging each other a bit, and Aubrey said, "Is my godfather, you know, Cyril is my godfather." And I asked, and I said, "How could that be?" And he said he went back to the time when the PPP was won, founded by Comrade Chedi, to be a party for everyone, embracing everyone in Guyana. And in those early days, before the split in 1955, it was in those times that I understood that Comrade Belgrave had become godfather of Aubrey Norton, because that family and Belgraves and others were all members of the PPP. But when the split took place, interestingly, the Freitas Norton family split. The father and some of them stayed on with Chedi, I was told, and the mother and some of them moved on with Forbes. As it turned out, one of the brothers of Aubrey worked with me in the bauxite company and had been supporting the PPP when I got into politics in Linden back in 1992. And I mentioned that to recall where we were, the vision of Chedi, the recognition that there would be a challenge in bringing our people all together, the valiant efforts that he made to bring about a party, and particularly an executive that represented all the people of Guyana, the unfortunate nature, the unfortunate event of the split in the party. And whilst it may be argued that the split was not primarily racial, personalities, but there's always an overtone of different views with race in Guyana for many good reasons. There'd always be a big overlap between views and race. But that split, I think one of the challenges for us today is to keep on working, aiming to overcome those differences into the future, and maybe that would be one of the good achievements of us in memory of Comrade Cyril Belgrave, to work to make the party representative, more and more representative of all of the people of Guyana. As it happened, as I got to know him a little bit, and his family, it turned out that his wife was from central Maiconi, where my father comes from, and so on. So there was some knowledge of the two families. And also, it turned out she had been a student of mine in the year I taught at Tutorial High School, 1962 to 1963. So we had some of those recognitions. And I always had the feeling that Mr. Belgrave, Cyril, kind of overlooked me, and with some, in the nature of big brother, and every Christmas he would make sure that I got a fair share of the drinks and Christmas cheer that he would be distributing. And also he ensured that I got down to I think the calling up place on the Lombard Street there, where for many, many years he would have everyone in, and you had to eat up and drink up quite a lot to gain his favor. So we're not here forever, we're here for a limited time, and many of our sages have commented that it is our achievements, what we work for, the principles we hold dear during the years that we are here on earth that matter, that we contribute wherever we find ourselves born, that we make a contribution and leave our neighborhood better than it was when we were born. And I have no doubt that Cyril has left Guyana and left the areas that you'd worked much better off. Thank you much.
Friends and friends of Cyril Belgrave, it was hard to speak here tonight. And for those of the younger generation who also spoke, the PPP in 2019 is 69 years old. We are on the edge of becoming 70. We're the longest and the oldest party in the Guyana and also in the Caribbean. And so when tonight, I think you've all been exposed to glimpses of the history of our country and the history of our party. As Comrade Rodney said, that the interchangeable, it is difficult to delink the PPP from the history of the PPP, from the history from the Guyana, and from the history of the working people of this country. They were all interlinked because each one has benefited as a result of the presence of the PPP. Belgrave was a member of the PPP from 1955 and served for over 63 years. That's a long time. And for many of the young people here today, who are in their 30s and 20s and 40s, and saying, shucks, being a party for 63 years, whoa, and it does sound like a long time. And it is to the credit of the older comrades who have been members of this party for that era coming forward, that have stayed loyal to the party. Belgrave represented the best in the PPP in terms of the leaders who were loyal, courageous, disciplined, caring, not materialistic, not arrogant. And certainly for me as a woman in the party, like Mitra said, I have never experienced a sexist comment from Belgrave over the 43 years I knew him. So tonight has given us, and I hope for the younger generation, an idea of what life has been like over the 63 years of which Belgrave was a member. And to see the diversity and the experiences, the good times, the difficult times, and the bad times. And even when we were in government from 1992, October to 2015, it wasn't easy. We weren't given an easy time by the opposition. And I'm not talking about the way the PPP behaves, where we have peaceful pickets. I'm talking about when they were burning and beating and so on. And so we are a party that is steeled. We are a party that is like we are honed by fire and brimstone. And we are a party that produces strong leaders, whether at the grassroots level, because for me and for all of us, a leader doesn't have to be at the top. The leader is who is guiding and leading at all levels of the party. We must all see ourselves as leaders. And so Belgrave was the epitome of a leader of this party. And we hope that the next generation will emulate that and to give of themselves. Sometimes people ask, well, what am I going to get? I'm helping out, I'm volunteering, I'm distributing this, I'm distributing that. What's for me? And I'll say this very, very clearly, that Belgrave never asked for anything. Never asked for anything. He drove around in an old car that we used to make fun of. But let me tell you something. In the 80s and 90s, that old car, before we got into government, traveled and carried many of us, to meetings, up quarantine in different places. And many times you had to push and change tires. But it was that old Betsy that got us around. Belgrave never asked. He was always giving. And I talked about the cross buns before, bringing cross buns on, of sharing his lovely bread that he made, of if you're sick, you're not feeling well, he always had a plaster for every sore. This is a human being that, for all of us and for those of us especially who work with him, it was an honor to know him. It was an honor to be with him. And sometimes, you know, in life we don't tell each other that we like each other or that we recognize and thank each other. We wait until a person's gone. Why do we do that? Why do we do that all the time? And I did it. You know, I'd see Belgrave and give him a big hug and a kiss, because this was to make Colin more jealous that I was getting a kiss from Belgrave. These were the little things of the party. But that it was about saying thank you, about recognizing. And so when Belgrave was given the CCH, the Cassie Crown of Honor, it was about recognizing, acknowledging a man who had served this country, was a patriot, a nationalist for Guyana, and who had served it as a trade unionist and as an honorable and leader of the People's Progressive Party. So tonight is to give you this kaleidoscope almost of one man's life, and how this one man's life intersected with so many others, in so many other places, trade unions, the wharfs, parts of the country, rice farmers, workers, public servants. And so tonight is a night of reflection, and I know some comrades have felt sad, but this is a night of reflection where we reflect and we celebrate and we honor. We give honor to a comrade called Cyril Calvin Lewis Belgrave, a wonderful human being, one that the PPP was honored to have as a member in its ranks. and in which we were honored to walk and work with him through the many years. So I hope you have a good night. I wish to thank Shalon and Chelmsford and the whole big Belgrave tribe, as I call it. And I'm always honored to be called Auntie Gail. You can call me Auntie Gail whenever you want and wherever you want. But for the Belgrave children, the many children, all have a look that you can tell is Belgrave stamp. There's a stamp he had, whether it's a DNA or whatever. Relatives, please convey to them that we are honored to have had a man called Cyril Belgrave.